Kansas Jayhawks, national championship contenders in football? Well, believe it or not, 8 years ago, that was not a laughable topic. In fact, it was quite believable. 2007, Mark Mangino's Jayhawks went 11-0 before their big showdown with Missouri. If Kansas had beaten Missouri that Saturday in Kansas City, Kansas and not LSU would have played Ohio State that season for the BCS National Championship. Kansas still, though, went 12-1 that season with the major bowl win, the Orange Bowl over Virginia Tech. 2 years later, Kansas looked like they were about to do something big again. They started by winning their first 5 games, and then from that moment on, things changed. Keep in mind that Kansas in 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, and the first 5 games of 2009, the Jayhawks had a record of 36-17. That's right, 36-17. They won 68% of their games. But what have they done since then? Well, the last 7 games of 2009 and the rest of this decade, it's been futility for the guys from Lawrence. 12 wins and 55 losses. Less than 20% of their games have resulted in wins. That's right, they lost their next 7 in 2009. They fired Mangino, and the program has not been the same since. Turner Gill wasn't the answer, and we knew Charlie Weiss, whom, as they might say in the movie Major League when talking about Roger Dorn, hey, he's not high-priced talent, he's just high-priced, and that's what Charlie Weiss was, high-priced. We knew that he wasn't the answer. We knew that from day number 1. Fired 4 games in the last season. Clint Bowen was able to finish the season as interim coach, and Bowen, by the way, is still on the staff, if you're curious, as he coaches defense. So David Beaty, the former Kansas receivers coach, and lately has been the receivers coach at the air raid attack of Texas A&M. Yes, that's right. Beaty was a part of that 2012 team that beat Oklahoma like crazy in the Cotton Bowl and won at Alabama and had a Heisman Trophy-winning freshman quarterback named Johnny Manziel. Receivers coach for that team was David Beaty, and yes, he is bringing the air raid attack to Lawrence. Of course, the biggest difference is the following. For one, Kansas is not familiar with this offense, and 2, I'm not sure if all the players that they have are the personnel compatible for this air raid attack, which will really utilize the receivers big time. The running game will still be a part of it, but more so the receivers and a quarterback who has to make quick decisions and be athletic. Well, Kansas thought that the quarterback situation was taken care of before the spring with Michael Cummings, a good all-around athlete. But during spring ball, Cummings suffered a major knee injury requiring surgery, and who knows if he'll be recovered by the time the season starts. But you do have Montel Cozart, who played a little last season. In fact, he threw more interceptions than he did TDs, 5 TDs and 7 picks. So Cozart right now figures to be the starting quarterback for the Kansas Jayhawks. Looking at the running situation for Kansas, again, the running game won't be a big part of this offense, but a guy that I thought would have been terrific for because of his athleticism was Corey Avery. But Avery, along with wide receiver Rodriguez Coleman, dismissed just recently from the team by Coach Beaty for unspecified reasons. So now the running game looks like DeAndre Mann will get the majority of the carries. Now keep in mind that Kansas, under Charlie Weiss, really had to go heavy as far as junior college recruiting. They're going to have to this time as well because there's just not much experience back from last year's team. Yeah, they went 3-9, but still, since you're starting from scratch anyway, you might as well have some guys who played a little bit on the college level, granted the junior college level, but the college level nevertheless. Tight end, Ben Johnson. You'll have him, along with the guy that did get some experience a year ago for Kansas. That's Joe Gibson at center. And then you'll have left tackle Jordan Shelley-Smith, the one-time tight end who arrived on campus weighing just a little more than 260, but it's beefed up to nearly 300 pounds since he'll be playing that critical left tackle position for protection. So we're going to see how this team does. The receiving part of it, well, it stinks for Kansas that Nigel King is off to the NFL. He left for the pros. So at receiving core, we already mentioned that you won't have Coleman, but you will have Trey Parmalee. Now, if the name Parmalee sounds familiar, it should, because his dad, Bernie Parmalee, this tells you how old school I am. I remember him when I was in college when he was playing for the Miami Dolphins. That was Bernie Parmalee. Now I think Bernie is an assistant coach for the Raiders, if I'm not mistaken. But Trey Parmalee, his son, is a receiver for KU. Defensively, we've seen worse defenses in Kansas's defense, no pun intended. They were on the field quite a bit, and all indication is that since the air raid attack doesn't take much time off the clock, if Kansas is doing a lot of 3 plays and out and punting, that means that the defense will be playing even more. Coach Beaty feels that of the 3 units he has, he's probably the most comfortable right now comparing the other 2. He feels that defensive line, he's more comfortable with that unit than the linebackers and the secondary. Ben Goodman returns as a defensive end, and when I looked at Kansas's lineup, I saw Goodman as the only full-time starter on defense from a year ago. I mean, they're that thin when it comes to experience, when it comes to depth. I mean, you got to remember, Jake Love, they were counting on him, but he retired in June because of medical reasons, so it's really a shame for him. Isaiah Johnson, the safety, well, he's off to play for Steve Spurrier at South Carolina. He's a Gamecock now. So as you can tell, Kansas, they didn't have a whole lot coming back this year anyway, but they had even fewer numbers back because of either injury or transferring or people getting kicked off the team. Well, let's look at the secondary because I do feel like they have lots of athleticism to show up there. Probably their best athlete, they have Fish Smithson at the safety spot, and at the corner, Brandon Stewart. Remember, Kansas is replacing the entire secondary as far as full-time starters, but they finished 5th last year out of 10 teams when it came to pass defense. Just a little over 240 yards is what they sacrificed per game. That's not bad considering how high scoring and how throwing prone the Big 12 is. At linebacker, Marnez Ogletree, you have him coming back, and also to Tevin Shaw. These guys, I don't believe were full-time starters, but I did think saw some action last year for Kansas. Punting, this guy saw a ton of action, but you won't have him this year, and that is Trevor Pardula, an all Big 12 punter. And, yeah, you better learn how to putt quite a bit if you're at Kansas, and he did, but he's moved on, so the punting position becomes wide open. They look solidified at kicker with Matt Wyman, who a year ago, 9 of 15 on field goal kicking, not bad, but he knows he can improve that percentage higher than 60%. The schedule for Kansas, you open with the Jackrabbits from South Dakota State. Don't laugh because last year they did make it to the quarterfinal round of the FCS playoffs and gave eventual champion North Dakota State all they wanted, losing by a close margin. So if Kansas plays bad, they could lose that opener, but I would suspect this is going to be their best shot at a victory all year long. Memphis will be tough. The Tigers have a good secondary and a good passing attack. That'll be a hard game to win, although it's in Lawrence. Bye week, and then you go to Rutgers from the Big Ten. And your Big 12 opener is at Iowa State. This was Kansas's only Big 12 win and prevented them from finishing in the cellar. And again, Iowa State play them on the road, so that won't be easy. You get Texas Tech at home, early part of the Big 12 slate, and they have an offense not too dissimilar from yours, so maybe a shot at a minor upset there. But then late October to the rest of the season, the schedule looks like it's going to get a little bit dicey. Oklahoma State in Stillwater on October 24th. Then you host Oklahoma. You go to Texas. That was Charlie Weiss's last game. His team got blanked 23-0 last year, and then he was fired. At TCU, remember Kansas came close to upsetting the Horned Frogs. You host West Virginia, and you get Kansas State in your backyard for the Sunflower Showdown. Look, I could tell you that Kansas is going to win 9 games this year. I could tell you they're going to get a good bowl bid, and I could tell you that it's going to be a year where they're going to improve the win total by about 6 games. But then again, I can also tell you, too, that my name is Lady Gaga and that I'm going to be parachuting tomorrow from the moon with Mickey Mouse. Now, would you believe anything I just told you? Man, I didn't think so, especially the part about Kansas winning 9 games. Look, the Jayhawks try hard, but I think that they are behind everybody else still, and I think the new offense is going to take time, and I think the defense is going to be on the field way too much. I think for the Jayhawks, I got them going 1-11, but look on the bright side, Kansas. Midnight Madness will be rolling along soon, and you'll be kicking everybody's butt on the hard court for basketball, not football. Thanks, everybody.